Nunavut and the Northern Lights in the Arctic Circle, from the White House gates to Lion's Gate, from Casablanca to everyone listening around God's globe. Hi, Gigi. This is Tuning In with Betsy from marvelous Manhattan and terrific Toronto. Today, my very special guest is Jazine, best known in Toronto and around the world as a superb magician and mentalist. Over the years, Jazine has developed a somewhat startling habit of baffling reporters by revealing their bank PIN numbers on camera. From the streets of Singapore to some of the swankiest penthouses and lounges in Toronto, Jazine has been offering his clients a very unique form of entertainment. Using a mixture of magic, mentalism, and hypnosis, he presents an assortment of mysteries that has left audiences around the world spellbound. He has appeared on Rogers TV in the GTA and on national television shows. Jazine, thank you so much for taking the time today to join us on this show. Welcome, welcome, welcome.
Thank you so much for having me, Betsy.
Well, my very first question is a very simple one. How did you get interested in magic?
Well, yeah, the question is simple, but actually it's far more interesting. You see, there is a general consensus amongst magicians that is you don't get into magic, but magic gets into you. I cannot think of anything that is more true, Betsy. My first experience with magic were corny little tricks that my brother and I devised together and would bemuse friends and families whose homes we would visit. And you see, our fascination at that time was largely propelled, I think, by an uncle. And I used to reference uncle here very loosely. He actually, once he brought a Coke bottle from India, and he seemed to move the bottle around like a toy just by wiggling his fingers over it. He assured us there was no string, and I wondered why he actually made any mention of string, for I was at that tender age, Betsy, maybe I must have been 6 or 7. I did not expect any guile or trickery anyways. You see, children live in a world where the impossible as a notion does not exist. It is a magical world, a world filled with superstitions, where the mundane is often transformed into the magical. Betsy, it is for this reason that children, are fascinated by the world of the bizarre and the fantastical, a world which is inhabited with fairies, elves, witches. It is magic in the truest sense of the word that we come to lose as we become adults in a world that I sought to reconstruct today as a magician. You see, as a child grows up and he grows older, he learns to read and write, and he becomes literate, in other words, and this world of fantasy, which is bound by only the imagination, gives way to a world of logic, reason, rationality, of cause and effect. This is what happens when any culture makes the transition from an oral culture to a literate culture of reading and writing. Many of these ideas that I speak of today were propelled by Marshall McLuhan, a Canadian scholar. I think you're familiar with him, are you?
I am. The media is the message.
Exactly. And you see, because literally, a literary culture demands this from us. Writing, he said, was something that has rules. The first lesson a kid, learns in grammar is that grammar is bound by rules. Marshall McLuhan, the prophet of the media, once said in the 60s that the alphabet is a construct of fragmented bits and parts which have no semantic meaning in themselves and which must be strung together in a line and in a prescribed order. You see, cultures that are literate perceive an environment in visual and spatial terms and expect to see uniformity and conformity. A child who has seen the word apple so many times knows that letter A must follow P and then must follow another P and so on, L, L. He quite usually imagines that the apple will be red or green, and something must happen to that apple, something which only the verb in the sentence will reveal to him. But you see, in pre-literate and oral societies where people do not use the organ of the eye as their dominant organ, hearing was believing. That is, the organ of the ear was the main sensory input. And that is why if you see Aboriginal cultures today, they live in a world still bound by magic and superstition that we, in our rational minds, can only describe as completely bizarre. A world which is actually very similar to a child's world, you see. It is a happy world, it is a paradise that we have lost and seek to regain. But actually, I'm quite optimistic, Betsy, and I think you might agree too. If you look at the rise of, say, postmodernism and art and literary movements like expressionism or Dada surrealism, something suggests to me that we are going backwards in revival. There is some sort of revival of this archaic form.
That's
anyways,
the future.
Are you still able to hear me?
Oh, I said back to the future. When you
Yeah,
said
there
about...
is a sense that we're going somewhere, we're sort of trying to reclaim that lost past. But anyways, I have digressed here, but it was this logical and rational teenager mind that I came to have a chance encounter one day with an Indian mystic. Now, this is many years after I first got into magic at age 6 or 7. This Indian mystic, she once sat across me with a pad and paper in hand, and she correctly read my mind and divined a number that I had thought of. You see, the world of magic and fantasy at that point was revived in me. This I must learn, I said to myself, and hence I set about trying to do this, Betsy. It has never been an easy task, and this like walking the razor's edge. There is an old alchemical saying that I'm reminded of now, actually. One should read the oldest books, climb the highest mountains, and travel the broadest deserts. And I think I always botch this quote, but I think you get the meaning. You see, truth that I was trying to seek at that age, truth is never served on a silver platter. I think it was Winston Churchill who once said, truth is so precious that she must always be guarded by a bodyguard of lies. Hence, one must glean to find truth. You must seek the lower layer, as Captain Ahab says to Starbuck in Moby Dick. I think it helps sometimes, Betsy, to find a guru. In my case, it was an older magician who can assist you in your quest. Because, you see, what I think is happening is a guru is the figure who can lead you down winding. A guru never actually tells you the truth in a straightforward manner. He leads you down winding paths, usually with a coy smile on his face, and he makes you work for yourself. He's like a trickster. A trickster is a figure in Aboriginal cultures that is helping you in ways you cannot actually see. You see, essentially that is what I am, a magician, a mind reader, but I am nothing but really a trickster who bends the rules of God and nature, but ultimately to bring about positive effects. But you see, the word trickster has such a negative connotation, but I think we have to see the positive out of it. It's like I'm reminded of a quote in Huckleberry Finn here. Tom Sawyer says to Huck, we are not thieves, we are highway robbers. You see, and that changes the whole perception of how you're received. And that's essentially what I am, a trickster, but also a magician, a mind reader, mystifier. Yeah.
Well, I definitely agree when you say about a guru doesn't tell you all the answers, because I can think of my teacher whom I sat with many years ago in Philadelphia to develop my own. I have had natural psychic ability since childhood, but you're absolutely right. When you start to go to school, it gets schooled out of us. And I was connected with spirit, but my teacher said, we're not going to do everything for you. We'll teach you how to do it for yourself. Well, we have a caller. Let's see what our caller has to say today.
Okay.
Hi, caller, area code 323. What would you like to ask Jazine today? Oh, they hung up. I lost them. Okay. So, where were we?
Well, you were talking about
my teacher
finding a guru, and
yeah, and about magician. And I was going to ask you, how did you get into being a mentalist? How did that happen?
The mentalist portion, I think, as I described, came about as I was dabbling with magic, and I came to encounter that Indian mystic who could, with pad and paper, read my mind, and you see that was a pivotal point. I thought, well, magic and card tricks are all good, but what is going on here? Because if she's able to do what I think she is doing, then I think I should quite literally quit learning science and math and all the rationality that has been thrust into us, because this defies what I think I know.
And what are you doing now? I heard, or I learned, you're at University of Toronto now?
Yes, I do magic too. I do my mentalism. I give speaking events and stuff. But I am also a Sanskritist and an Indologist. That means I study the ancient Indian literature and religion and really try to make sense of it.
Well, just speaking with you for a few minutes, I know you're very well read. You're very well read.
Thank you.
Where do you have any events coming up that we can see you at?
None of these events I'm currently coming up on are public, but as my website always will lead you to the parts that you might be interested in. But most of my events are usually private in nature at the moment. I'm also in the process of writing some books now, but I don't think that will come to fruition really by 2012, 2013.
Now, how do you like the writing process? It's definitely interesting.
You just have to, I think, devote a certain number of hours every day and just keep going back and just plugging at it.
What are your books going to be about?
Actually, I'm working on 2 books now. One of them will be in line with what I'm doing for my graduate work at the University of Toronto. And another is just speculations on culture and 2012 phenomena and things like that.
Oh, yes. What's your take on 2012? And I don't believe it's the end of the world. I don't expect doomsday.
Yes, actually, and 2012 is really an interesting phenomenon, because if we think of how most people are imagining 2012, it usually involves an alien who is an other, meaning we are looking not only to ourselves, but even to, say, Mayan cultures, asteroids, aliens landing on the White House lawn. There is a fear of the suspicion of an other, and I think this emerging archetype of the other or the alien is an effort to integrate alienation and actually make it a positive thing. See, what I'm trying to get at is the best way to look at any culture is not to see what the ivory tower academics are writing, but to actually look at what our culture is reflecting through movies and songs and dance and literature. Think about what's happened in the last 20 years, say, from Steven Spielberg's classic movie E.T. or lately James Cameron's movie Avatar, and think how clever it was for them to make people identify with something that looks as ugly or as bizarre. The alien in those movies, I mean, in Avatar, it looks like a cross between a Smurf and a human, and in E.T., the alien is a cross between some kind of anchovy and a Pillsbury Doughboy. And, if you look at how bizarre and ugly those alien figures are, you still see that what the movies are all about over the last 20 years is love. And love, it was alien love that movie tries to propagate. I mean, think of, in stark contrast, think of Orson Welles' reading of H.G. Wells's The Martians Who Land Upon Earth. The alien in that movie is one of fear, not of love. It propagates complete fear and desecration of culture, and it's a very important love to cultivate, this alien love, because the process of integration of this electronic overself, that is one way of looking at the end of history. That is the process that we are all involved in. Will be to embrace this alien love, because this alien is knocking at the door of science. You see, what I'm trying to get at here is, when I refer to alien, I mean this emerging phenomena of really this whole host of New Age beliefs that has come up over the last 20, 30, 40 years. I mean, from near-death experiences to the psychedelic experiences to alien experiences to all these Reiki healing, dream experiences, these phenomena emerging, and I don't care if this phenomena is real or it's artificial. The fact is that this phenomena is a emerging phenomena that is pervading the consciousness of many people. I think you are familiar with this show, Coast to Coast AM, are you?
Oh, I love Coast to Coast. I'm a coastie.
I mean, they speak of such bizarre topics, but they are, after all, one of the most listened to radio shows on this planet. So I think what we see is this challenge towards science when there is an emerging culture who is believing in this phenomena, and then science with all its hubris has to look towards this phenomena and not turn away its blind eye. And let me give you an example of history, and one way of seeing the future is just looking at history. If you were having dinner, Betsy, with a Roman bureaucrat in, say, 300 AD, the conversation on the dinner table would include subjects like Greek philosophy, Stoicism, Epicureanism, skepticism. In other words, Betsy, they had thought they had come up with fantastic bullshit detectors. But you see, the talk that would go about amongst the stable boys or the gardeners would be of a magician in Galilee, Israel, who was rising people from the dead and curing the blind and doing all sorts of miracles. And the Roman bureaucrats you would be having dinner with would sneer at this talk and say, I mean, why can't these Jews why can't these Jews really learn some Greek philosophy or educate themselves? Because, I mean, at that time, Rome was one of what even we today consider it as one of the rising, the best civilization of its day. But you see, Rome was built on entirely slave culture. And Betsy, in a world where information could travel no faster than the speed of a galloping horse, in just a span of 100 years, it was the Emperor Constantine himself who converted into Christianity because of political reasons. In other sense, we may never know of what is coming up from the horizon. You may think that this is the Roman allegories, what science is today. Science with all its hubris is really turning a blind eye towards this phenomena that is really calling from the depths of the caves. And if we don't, what happened? I mean, when Christianity took over, was almost 1,000 years of stagnation. Then we refer to it as the Dark Ages, and it took a Renaissance man by the name of Galileo in the 16th century to make that claim. And of course, he was considered a heretic, but in that span of over 1,000 years, we were in the Dark Ages, to say, and history, we were pushed back in our what we consider the advancement of history. So I think this threatens us today. If we don't give attention to this emerging phenomena, then we ourselves risk being thrust backwards in time.
Well, you just jolted my memory of, I'll say, when I was younger, when I was a little kid, when I was a teenager, nobody ever spoke of near-death experiences. Nobody ever said, oh, I had an encounter with an angel. Nobody talked about, wow, what a coincidence. What about that? Or synchronicity. You just never heard it. But I'll say, and I'll go the last 30 years from, say, the 1970s, the 1980s, it has been emerging. And now most people know what an NDE is, near-death experience, or what Reiki is, or Chi is energy. Or I always say to my friends, well, I worked before in medicine all my life. I worked in emergency rooms. But my outlook now is, in the Western world, get out a prescription pad, write a prescription, get some pills at the pharmacy, and take those pills. But Eastern philosophy, Eastern medicine, which goes back, Chinese medicine, over 5,000 years, and it was way before the time of Christ, they're much more advanced, in my humble opinion, than what Western medicine. The West, I always say, the West has to catch up with the East. That's
well, that is certainly true. I mean, the East has always had this. You see, one of the dominant narratives in Western culture is man against nature. Is always man versus nature. Man seeks to dominate nature. I think McLuhan once said that the North American man, the cars he drives, he gets in his car just to go outside and to be alone. That, if you look at the concept of the North American car, is the home on wheels. It's this whole idea of man versus nature, which is largely absent from Eastern thinking, I think.
Yeah, I think technology. I know people think technology is the greatest invention since sliced bread, but I'm not exactly crazy. You know, I don't have a cell phone. I got rid of it. I don't have an iPad. I don't have a camera. I don't a digital camera. And there's just days when I want to detach from technology and actually go out into nature. And whether it's at Lake Ontario or whether it's in a city park or whether it's up north, I just want to leave modern times behind. And when I was a kid, my mother always wanted a farm, and I used to say, Mom, why do you want a farm? Now I go, Mom, you're pretty damn smart, because I could live on a farm. I'm waiting for the day when I'm sure you've heard this on Coast to Coast, when the electromagnetic field collapses, that there won't be any telephone service, fax machines will go out, no computer, no cell phones, no television, that it will really be like living in our grandmother's days when there was no telephone. It was man lived by the rising of the sun, the setting of the sun. And I read recently where Thomas Edison eventually led to curse the day he ever invented the light bulb, because he felt he ruined Western civilization with the light bulb, because then people could work 24 hours a day. Amazing. 20/20 hindsight.
Well, yeah, I mean, technology is here to stay, and really I don't think anyone is in control. I mean, we're inventing technology ourselves. I don't think it's something this dominator culture is trying to impose on us. So if we have technology is here to stay, then how do we navigate this technology? That is what I'm trying to see, because technology is not going to go away. We're not going to throw away the computers, the emails, or iPhones. If anything, these gadgetries are only going to get smarter. So I think one way to anticipate this future is through this return to direct experience, in the other sense of achieving the sense of gnosis. Gnosis not in the sense of subscribing to Scientific American and just validating what you already believe, but gnosis in the Greek sense of the word, of direct, revealed, direct sensory experience. And ways to do it are meditation, the shamanism, seeing radical magic before you, psychedelics. These are the things that can connect us with, and I hope you understand, these are the things that are the motivation and the raison d'etre of all of this emerging phenomena. Because what you see, what these phenomena are doing is that they're actually anticipating this future state. This electronic global information organism is in fact already present in the same way that most of the future is already present in the past. I mean, think of any point in the past, Betsy. Think of, say, 1950. Think of how much of today was present in 1950. It means that this idea that science fiction has sold us, that the future is a total other world just around the bend, isn't actually true. The future is 95% present in the present, so we have to embrace technology. And it is this 5%, Betsy, that eludes us. This 5% will provide the great adventure for the next 20, 30, 40 years as we come to terms with the fact that we are moving off into the human imagination. That is what this godlike thing is this 2012 phenomena. You see, it is not a filled space, a living figure, an angel, a god or a demon, but it is an empty space, a space that we will fill with our dreams essentially. Because our dreams, Betsy, have always been the appetition leading us forward into history. But you see, for the past 500 years, we have never understood the significance of dreams, just because the rise of science has led to this phenomenon over the past 500 years, where it has become very unfashionable for us to believe in dreams and visions and revelations. But I think actually, Betsy, the faith is well-founded. It is well-founded because of the nature of the physics of time. And that is a physics that your own experience will reinforce for you if you examine it carefully enough.
Well, it's funny you should mention time, because time, people ask me about time all the time. Timing in the universe, time for a new job, time for a new relationship, time to break off the old relationship. And the way that we think of time, 1,000 years ago there wasn't a clock, but now it's that we're obsessed with clocks. You know, I don't wear a watch. I can't wear a watch because of I think my energy, I haven't been able to wear a watch since 1984. But it's no problem, because every time I walk down the street, somebody has a cell phone, and all I have to do is, hey, what time is it? And instead of looking at their wristwatch, Jazine, they're looking at their cell phone. I can't believe that our show is over. There's only one more minute remaining. And I want to thank Jazine. His website is www.jazine.ca. And I'd again like to thank everybody at Chapters Indigo for all the help they've given me with my book, Being Mystic in Touch with God, available at Indigo in Canada, Amazon worldwide, Barnes & Noble in the USA. I want to thank everybody for tuning in to Betsy today, this afternoon. Have a lovely day. God bless. Show compassion, mercy, and love to everyone you meet today.